You're listening to Crystal and Emily on Love Your Shelf, the best librarian podcast in the extensive and highly competitive field of librarian podcasts. We are here. It's Friday. I don't know about you, but I'm happy it's Friday.
That was a good sigh.
And in part because I have a new series that I want to watch, which I'm going to talk about. But first, I'm going to talk about some books.
Okay, good. Because I'm about to finish mine, and I need to move on to something else quickly so that my heart will heal after I've finished this series.
I know. I'm telling you, it really hurt when I finished that one.
Okay. Yep. I'm
We'll
still referring to The Killing, everybody. I think I mentioned it last week.
You're very close to being done.
I'm very close to being done, and I can't recommend it enough. That's all I'll say.
Well,
what you got for me?
So much. I've started several things, and I've gone on some deep dives based on starting those things, and they get sidetracked by other stuff. So we'll kind of go through with that a little bit.
Definitely.
We're going to go on a journey today.
Buckle up.
So the first thing I want to talk about is When the Stars Go Dark by Paula McLean. It comes out this month. It's not out quite yet. And it happens to be Mystery and Thriller Week on Goodreads. And I'm a big Goodreads nerd. And so I'm always on there. I always log my reading there. I'm not great about updating when I'm finished with something, but I always go on when I start something.
Right.
Anyway, but I saw that and I was like, oh, perfect. And so Paula McLean has written other books that have been super popular. And I have read maybe one, I think, but I was kind of drawn into this one. I love an epigraph, and there's a good one in this book, so I'll share it. It's by Frederick Buechner, who I didn't know much about, and that was one of my deep dives there. But we won't go too far into that one. But he wrote, "Here is the world. Beautiful and terrible things will happen. Don't be afraid."
Oh my gosh, I love it.
Isn't that great?
Yes. It's simple and it's true.
Yeah. But it's really hard to do. And that's our poem for today.
Yes. I want to quickly mention the spooky story we found in one of our journals here at the library. Yes. It was about a wolf and a little boy he had a feeling that there was a wolf under his bed, and he was correct. And it's a terrible, tragic ending. He gets eaten by the wolf. The end.
But the way that it was told was so matter of fact and
only periods.
Yes. But it was kind of like an adult in that way, like I thought that there was a wolf under my bed. I was right.
I was right.
Yeah.
That was my favorite line.
But we have these journals that are community journals that you can check out and then add a story or add something that you want to write to it. And whoever that child was, they're anonymous.
I know.
So whoever that child was, bless your heart. I hope that you're okay.
We loved it. We did. I know.
I did. That was the best thing I read today. Was that?
I highly recommend.
Okay, so When the Stars Go Dark is about this missing persons detective in San Francisco, and while she's really experienced with like the dark, seamy underbelly, she has her own personal tragedy and goes to Northern California where she grew up to kind of deal with it and get over it, and then she finds out about, or she's brought into this investigation of a local teenager who's missing in that town.
Okay.
And so it's really good so far. I have not finished it, but there's a lot it draws heavily from like a true crime case that actually happened.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay.
And now I
Like a
can't
specific
remember.
one. Okay.
Yeah, I can't remember the name of the girl, but it was a famous case
Okay.
years ago, and
Okay.
so it's kind of referencing that. And so there's a lot of things about trauma and dealing with those and how
Mm-hmm.
anyway. So it's not just a like detective novel. That's what I'll say.
Cool. Well, and it sounds like it could, maybe be a great television series as well.
Yeah.
And I only say that because how many murder mysteries are there where the big city detective has to go to back to their hometown or to some smaller town
Mm-hmm.
and solve a crime there. So based on
Yeah.
that alone,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm
She's
interested.
in good company. There's lots of those stories.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, then the next one that I am working on is
Mhm.
called The Bomber Mafia, A
Ooh.
Dream, a Temptation, and the Longest Night of the Second World War.
Whoa.
And it's by Malcolm Gladwell, and it's based on an episode of his podcast that he
Uh-huh.
did, Revisionist History. And, I always read Gladwell.
Uh-huh.
He's very engaging, like, even if it's something like I'm not necessarily interested in, air battles in Second World War,
Mm-hmm.
but um, he, always draws out the interesting connections
Uh-huh.
and so I'm drawn in.
Cool,
I'm
cool. I
gonna,
think that says a lot because I think it would take yeah, it would take a specific and special kind of writing to I'm with you. Yeah, to draw me into something like that.
yeah, and it's also um, really relevant just in terms of I think just general ethics because there's a whole
Mm-hmm.
there's like different sides in World War II. The airplane wasn't considered that central to
Mm-hmm.
strategy when the war started, and then there's this group of people that said that you could do these really precise bombing targets
Mm-hmm.
and that could end up being less damaging in terms of like
Right.
civilian costs and that kind of stuff.
Right.
And then there were other people who were against that and were just like,
Uh-huh.
let's no, we got to get them all.
Sure, sure.
And so it's really fascinating. I definitely recommend it. It's not very
Ooh,
long, and it comes out later this month as well.
very nice.
Yeah, and then um, I think probably the one that I'm most excited about. I'm actually listening to it, which sometimes is good for me, sometimes it's not my favorite, but
Yeah, I go
this
through
one is good.
phases. Mhm.
Yeah, and this one is I think I'm enjoying it most because it's this from the point of view of the main character, and the book is
Mhm.
called Clara and the Sun, and it's by Katsuo Ishiguro, who was a
Mhm.
Nobel Prize winner a couple years ago.
Okay.
And the story is about the main character is an artificial friend. So
Oh.
it doesn't explain exactly like the technology that makes this possible, but it's
Uh-huh.
basically a young person and they're purchased by families for their children to be like their friends, their
Oh,
guardians.
keep them busy.
Yeah, yeah. So it's like an Android type thing. I don't know.
Okay. Okay.
And but the majority, at least so far in this book, is this person or whatever artificial friend,
Uh-huh.
Clara, is in a store
Uh-huh.
watching out the window to see who's going to come purchase her.
Oh,
But
cool.
it's like they're very careful, like the people that run the store and
Mm-hmm.
that kind of thing,
Mm-hmm.
to treat them as though they're not just mechanical. They're kind of
Right.
they talk to them about that their child will choose them and then they will go
Uh-huh.
live happily with them, and but things through this artificial friend, through Clara's eyes, she kind of sees some other evidence that maybe it's not so cheerful.
Oh.
And she sees other artificial friends, through her window that she's looking out on the world through, and maybe their lives don't look that great.
Right,
And
right.
so it is really, really cool so far.
Oh my gosh,
And
what a neat original idea.
yeah, and it's by the author of a number of things, but The Remains of the Day, which I read years ago, which is also a beautiful novel. Won the Booker Prize, I think, when it came out in the late 80s. And that one is about Stevens, who's a butler at this British house, like, great house or whatever.
Okay.
And it takes place in the 50s when that whole lifestyle was ending. That like having
Yes.
lots of butlers and maids and all the
Yes.
things.
Yes. The Downton Abbey lifestyle.
Exactly. Yes. Well, that's coming to a close, or it's already come to a close.
Got it.
And he's old. He's lived his whole life that way. And so he goes on this trip and he's kind of revisiting his life and questioning what he's done with it as being this just a butler, basically.
Okay. Cool.
And how he's like effaced himself to give his life to being a servant.
Yeah. Neat.
Yeah, it's really, really good. And there's a beautiful movie that's based on it, which
Cool.
it was a Merchant Ivory film. Which are you familiar with that? Like,
No.
it was
I said like I did, but
no, just I'm just making sure, because they were super big in the 70s, 80s, into the 90s. Ivory was a director and Merchant was a producer, and they made a ton of some of the best movies ever.
Wow.
And so they made Remains of the Day. It's Anthony Hopkins and Emma Thompson, and Christopher Reeve is also in that. And then they made A Room with a View. That's Helena Bonham Carter stars in that. And then Howard's End, which is also Anthony Hopkins and Emma Thompson and Helena Bonham Carter.
Yeah.
And then The White Countess is another
favorites.
one. Yes. Oh, yeah. The great movies. The White Countess is pretty recent for their films. It's I don't know, 10 or 15 years ago.
Oh, okay.
And it's Ralph Fiennes and Natasha Richardson.
Cool.
And
oh, wow.
Yeah, just beautiful films there. So it's almost like it's taken on its own genre. Like if you say Merchant Ivory film, you kind of know what you're gonna get into.
Yeah. Well, and they're lucky that sounds really great together.
Exactly. Yes. And so as I'm, listening to Clara and the Sun, I'm thinking about Remains of the Day. I'm like about to, pull up and watch it again. And and then I remember, Christopher Reeve is in that, which makes me think of, and here's where we're going down the rabbit hole. It makes me think of Somewhere in Time. Have you ever seen this movie?
No.
Oh my gosh. So when I was a teenager, is when I saw this movie the first time. It's Christopher Reeve and Jane Seymour. I think it's like early 80s, 1980 maybe, that it came out. And through my young life, if I ever needed to have just a major purging cry, I could put that in. I would watch that.
Yep.
And it's, I don't know actually how I would react to it now as an adult.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I'm curious. Can we do that experiment and tell me how it goes?
I don't know. I don't know if I'm up for it.
Do it live on the podcast.
Oh my gosh. No, I'm telling you, like, this is the kind of cry that you can't be seen in public for a day and a half because you just destroyed your face. And
everyone would be like, is she okay? Do we need to rescue her?
Yeah, the answer would be no, she's really not okay. It's like a silly setup, but at the beginning of the film, Christopher Reeve, who is, I mean, one of the greatest specimens of
yes.
maleness ever.
Maleness, yes.
And I was so in love with him as a kid with Superman and all of that stuff. I mean, I probably thought when I was a child that one day I would meet Christopher Reeve and we'd fall in love, and that would be it.
Yep.
Sadly, that didn't happen. But he did make this movie, which almost made up for it. So he plays a young playwright who's not really successful yet, but he's real enthusiastic, and he is at a party or like after, I don't know what you call it, after after a show, and this
after party.
Oh
sure.
Wow. Yes, it's an after party. I'm not sure the thing that's after the party. No.
I was like, wait, did she remember just now? Or
that was embarrassing. Sorry. So we'll move on. But as you can see, I'm caught up in the story. This woman, it's an older woman, actually a very old woman, comes up to him and hands him a thing. I can't remember what it is, like a necklace, something, and says, "Come back to see me," or "Come back to me," something like that. Okay. And so he's intrigued. He's like, "What is going on with this?" Yeah. You know. And so he does some research, and he finds out that the woman used to be an actress. Like, I mean, I want to say turn of the century, like, you know, so years and years before.
A while before, yeah.
Yeah, like I want to say prior to 1920, it would have to be, but long time ago. Okay. And he sees she's beautiful, like it's Jane Seymour, so you know, of course, she's beautiful. And he starts like investigating how one would travel back in time. And he succeeds, of course. And
must be nice.
Right. And
so all it takes is a little determination, guys.
Well, that's what's so funny about this movie is that's all he does is he like he just decides he's gonna do it, basically.
Oh, that's so funny. I'll ignore that though. That's totally fine.
Yeah, you could like probably even skip through that whole part, but so it's like he like hypnotizes himself, basically, I think is what it is. Oh. And so he goes back, meets her. Obviously, they fall in love.
A hottie meets a hottie. What else is supposed to happen?
That's what they exist for. And so they're like, you know, well, anyway, I won't give it away. Maybe I don't know if I should tell you the whole story, but
oh my gosh.
Well, not that you're going to go run out and watch this.
What is? Well, I want to, but I'm afraid to cry so much.
It really, I mean, it really rings you out, or at least it did for me at the time.
Okay.
Back when I believed in romance and stuff like that.
I was gonna say I'll have to watch it with Nick because he like never cries, and he's like a sensitive person, but never cries, and so I'm gonna like put this on and just stare at him the whole time.
Just a tear test to see.
Yes.
I might have some others that would be more of a test than this one, but
yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, okay. Well,
I'll give you a sampling.
That's another podcast episode.
But anyway, so it ends, terrible tragedy, and
oof.
Yeah, and that's the end.
Okay.
So, anyway, that is what I got to thinking about all of this after just listening to this one.
I love
book for a while.
I do. And that was called, the book is Clara and what?
And the Sun.
I want to read and or listen.
Yes, I'm really pleased with it. In fact, I'm listening to it and enjoying it, but I love his language so much that I might want to read it
instead. Yeah, I hear you.
But anyway, so that's my book saga for the week. But I also watched some other things that kind of tied into other stuff as well. So
okay,
we'll go down that rabbit hole. Okay. I watched. There's 3 episodes out, I think, maybe about to be 4, of a new show called Made for Love. It's on HBO Max.
Oh, I haven't seen that yet.
It's very similar in to the one, but like a
Uh-huh.
more darkly comic version, maybe. It's got
Cool.
more comedy in it. And um, it is about this, like, oh, Bill Gates type guy, but a young guy who has he and his wife live in basically like this artificial reality,
Okay.
like out in the desert where they don't like interact with anybody, but they see things that they want to, like they can make the ocean be there or whatever,
How did they
and
do this?
it's magic. No, he's
Determination.
he's like, well, maybe he's more akin to Elon Musk
Okay.
than
Okay.
Bill
Cool.
Gates. So he's more like out there and
Yes.
has all of
Eccentric.
this eccentric technology that he does.
Cool.
And so his wife um escapes. she
Oh.
she doesn't want to be there
Okay.
because the the thing that he is like his next project or whatever, and this is told in like as she's finding out about it, and then like in days into the future when she escapes, so it kind of
Oh,
goes back and forth.
cool. Okay.
And he's wants to plant a chip in both of their heads so that they can experience everything the other person experiences,
No, thank you.
which is terrifying. That's the worst.
I can barely keep up with myself. I don't need another person's problems.
Exactly. So she says, "No way, I'm not sticking around for this," and manages to escape, and then
Okay.
hijinks ensue. So,
Yay. Well,
yeah,
cool. I might have to start that this weekend.
yeah, it's definitely, and it's got the like terrifying aspect, but it's also funny in like a mm, what was that other one with what is his name? Oh my gosh,
Oh my gosh.
completely.
I need to know.
It's a
What's it?
movie that we've talked about the couple, and the day keeps happening over and over again.
Oh, Palm Springs.
Palm Springs. It's that kind of dark
And Andy
humor.
Samberg. Andy Samberg is
Thank
who.
you.
But
And
okay,
the
cool.
girl that's in that, the
Mhm.
actress, is also the main character in this one.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. I remember seeing her big, beautiful eyes on the
Yes. I
on
think
the
her name is
cover.
Kristen Milioti or
Yeah.
Milioti. Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Cool.
Yeah. So she's great. But
Yeah, I really liked her in Palm Springs.
anyway, so it's based on a book by Alyssa Nutting, and it was produced by Patrick Somerville, who I've talked about before because
Uh huh.
he wrote A Universe in Miniature, which I
Uh huh.
have talked about.
Yes.
And he also made Maniac, which was that Netflix series with Emma Stone.
That's right. I
Yeah.
forgot all about that. It was a few years ago, would you
It was
say?
a few years ago, and I think I've kind of forgot about it too because it's only like 6 episodes or something, and so I just watched it all in a day, and
I
then
think, am I crazy or is Jonah Hill also in it?
yes, he's also in
Okay. Yes. The super bad crew comes back
it. Yeah,
together.
exactly. And so he also made The Leftovers,
Oh,
which
one of
is
my
on HBO.
favorites.
Oh,
Yes.
beautiful, beautiful series.
Yes.
And so I have high hopes. This seems like this is going to be good. And
Okay, neat.
he also was responsible for a show called The Bridge, which I have not seen,
Oh,
and it's on
well,
Prime. And so that's,
I just didn't realize that he was behind all of that. So I'm writing the bridge down as well
yeah.
because
And I
I
don't
like
know
his
much
track
about
record.
it. I know that it's adapted from maybe like an Icelandic show or something like that, but
Huh, okay.
uh, you know, but anyway,
Neat.
very excited to have that to watch.
Yeah, I am too.
And then I watched a few documentaries.
Yeah.
The first one is, and I just thought, how ridiculous could this be? It's on HBO Max. It's called Persona, and it's the dark truth behind personality tests.
Oh, I saw that and do tell.
I know. I thought, really? So it's
Like,
about the
Yeah,
people
this
who
is not a
created.
topic, not a topic I've, thought a lot about. So,
No, and I've taken this test many times. They're talking
yeah,
about the Myers-Briggs test.
Myers-Briggs, sure.
And so it gives the history of, it's a mother and daughter actually who developed the test.
Okay.
And it was basically, it was really crazy actually. The mother just sort of used her daughter as an experiment through her whole life, and like came up with this stuff like after making her daughter, who was like an only child,
Oh my
go
gosh.
through all of this testing that she
Oh
created.
my gosh. And so it was just like, I'm gonna put her in this scenario.
Yeah,
What's the reaction? How do you feel about this?
right. And then and she would get like her daughter's friends to do it, and it's just a really wild story.
Yeah.
And so that's part of the, the dark truth, but
Okay.
also it talks about how companies now, and we see that because people come to the library all the time to fill out job
Yeah.
applications, but all of these companies, not all of them, many of them,
Hmm.
have this screening process where people have to do these really wild hours long personality tests basically.
Yeah.
And so it goes into that, and the corporate world, and why people are using
Oh.
that to weed people out.
And so what,
And
that like the concept is they'll, only accept certain combinations of
well,
personnel
it's
or
like, yeah, they use it to determine, say, if you're going to be trustworthy, or that.
oh.
But what a lot of these people are saying, that are kind of trying to debunk it, is that it doesn't
Yeah.
really prove anything necessarily.
Well, no. And I think that like, personalities change. I think, you can be
Mm-hmm.
one way when you're a child and sort of grow into something different. That's crazy.
I know. And I took one of these when I was younger and applying for some like big company's job,
Uh-huh.
and it took forever. And there was just
Uh,
like hundreds of questions. And part of what they judge you on is whether you are consistent. So it'll
mm,
say, like, if your coworker takes money from the till, what do you do? And then it'll ask it in a
in a
slightly
different
different way
way, like later on. I've noticed
to
that
catch you.
in, yeah, I've noticed that in even, just the Myers-Briggs test. I'm like, okay, didn't you
Yeah.
ask me this already? Well, and
Yes.
I am such I overanalyze everything. And so, number one, it takes me forever to take those tests. And number two, I feel like it's very possible to sort of answer one way the first time you read it. And then by the time I read it the second time around, maybe answer slightly different just because I'm thinking about it differently now. I don't know. This is all, I don't know. I'm just thinking of, again, overanalyzing over here.
Well, yeah, and for people who have a hard time reading, or they have any kind of disability,
Yeah.
it really is harsh on that. And so they follow some people who got turned down for jobs because of their
Mm-hmm.
performance on these tests, and then
Mm-hmm.
how that affects them.
Yeah.
And it was not what I was expecting, honestly.
How nuts.
Yeah. So it's a good documentary.
Cool.
And then I watched Hysterical on Hulu, and it's about female comics. And
Cool.
yeah, so which I'm interested in. I love like stand up comedy. Who doesn't? But
Yeah.
um, it's about the experience of women in,
Yeah, the comedy
yeah,
world.
in the comedy world, which is pretty rough.
I was about to say I couldn't do it.
Yeah,
I could never ever ever do it.
no, but it is worth watching.
All those boys would make me cry for sure.
Some of it is just really wild, the things that they've gone through. Um, I know I expected it to be bad, but it was just a little bit crazy. Anyway,
Okay.
so I
I'll
recommend
have to
that.
watch that.
And then I watched Kid 90.
I was just about to I haven't watched it, but my sister did, and she really loved it. And before that title came out of your mouth, I was like, I know another documentary on Hulu that Crystal needs to watch.
Well, so it's basically it's Soleil Moon Frye, who was Punky Brewster,
Yes.
and she just happened to document her whole life, basically.
Everything, right?
Yeah, she
And
was just constantly videoing, and she kept all of her voice messages and just has all of this stuff and kind of locked it away for years and then got it out and turned it into a
all of
documentary.
that from the 90s when like not everyone was doing that. I mean, you could do that today easily.
Oh yeah, no, she had to. In fact, parts of it, it's like people commenting on her camera that she's carrying around, and
yeah. Oh my gosh.
But so she was part of this like group of child actors that, you know, they grew up in a really weird way, and that there's lots of people. In fact, it was really sad. Like it goes through like the stories of her and these close friends of hers who OD'd or committed suicide, or there's so many of them that are in the documentary that just didn't make it out of childhood, basically.
Yeah, out of that life.
And so it's really nostalgic, like for me, because I think she's like my age or a year older.
Oh wow.
And so it was like, wow, because you see stuff now that's like a take on what the 90s was like.
Right.
This was like, to borrow,
this is it.
Yeah, this is mainlining the 90s in this.
Right.
So it was really interesting, and she has some actors and actresses interviewed today, like Brian Austin Green was one, and some other people who are still around.
Yeah. I saw her on, what's her name? Soleil Moon
Frye.
What's her Frye? I saw her on. I didn't even realize that Drew Barrymore has a talk show now, and she was on her talk show, and they were sort of talking about this documentary, and both living similar lives at that point.
Mm-hmm. Oh
so,
yeah.
Anyway,
so tough.
Yeah.
And she never really, like, if you're not familiar with Punky Brewster, that was like, it wasn't super duper successful at the time, but kids loved her and they loved that character. And so, and I remember, I think I was telling you the other day that like when I was in grade school that we wore different colored socks and stuff.
Yes.
It's because of Punky Brewster that we did that.
Right. Aww.
So then that show's canceled, and then she just sort of got typecast into these roles of real B movie kind of flops, and then just
my sister said that she's in an episode of Friends. She plays a girlfriend of Joey's, and her thing is like she's small, but she like punches him too hard. Like she's a big like kind of punch when something funny happens or like as a joke, but she punches too hard. And it's pretty funny.
Yeah. I don't even remember that part, or that aspect of it. But yeah.
Like she's like, get out of here, but like punching his arm really hard.
Yeah, it was really it was sad and touching, and
cool.
a lot about that time period. Not that I lived that kind of life when I was that age.
Sure.
Obviously. But so there's a lot of shenanigans going on in
oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah. But I'll wrap up. That definitely, especially if you're a 90s kid, got to watch Kid 90. But I will wrap up talking about a podcast. Which I'm sure everybody listens to, Fresh Air on NPR.
Yes, I haven't in so long, but
yeah, it's a old standby.
It is. When I moved to New York, I listened to Fresh Air constantly because Terry Gross's voice was like home. It just was so comforting and lovely. So yeah, I love it. Glad you're bringing it up.
Yeah, well, there was just the episode that I happened to listen to is on the high stakes of Amazon's One Click America. And I have what I would used to describe a love-hate relationship with Amazon, but
And now it's just,
it's pretty much hate.
yeah,
But
you told me a fact earlier that made me pretty depressed.
oh,
Or
about
yesterday, I guess it was. Yeah, just about how much money and power Jeff Bezos has.
mm-hmm.
Oof.
And it's not just that, which is obviously problematic in a lot of ways, but
Yeah.
it's also like this the lifestyle and the
Yeah.
how do you back away from that? I think and it
Right.
just it raises a lot of questions that I think we
Yeah.
should be asking
Yeah.
about that kind of. I mean, it's not just like an economic thing. It's turned into
Mm-hmm.
something much bigger and broader than that.
Like, and yeah, like a mental health thing.
Yeah.
I'm serious.
Yeah. No, there's and they go into a lot of different aspects of it. Of course, there's lots of ins and outs, and there's a novel. I think I've probably mentioned it maybe even last year on the
Hmm.
podcast, and I think it's called The Warehouse.
Okay.
It's like something like that, but it's basically based on an Amazon warehouse where people go if they're kind of down and out, and then they go live at this place and they like stay on
Oh.
this campus and they live there, and then they like just run around and pick up boxes and ship them around all day.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. It was really, really horrifying.
Oh God.
So I'll leave you on that note.
Happy Friday, guys.
But I
uh,
guess I'll say, if you want a good cry, or if you want a restrained, um, like navel gazing, old man type of cry, go for The Remains of the Day. Um, if you still feel like there's hope for romance in the world, but you want to have that ripped out of you, watch Somewhere in Time. I think either way, whatever you want, you got it.
yeah, yeah, okay. Love it. We've got it all, folks.
All right. Well, we'll talk to you again next week.
Yeah, sounds like a plan.
All
Bye,
right.
guys.
Bye.